Welcome to the Paul Has Fun podcast. I'm Paul, and on this podcast, I dig into my hobbies. I also document my life and interests. Thank you so much for spending time with me. This is my spoiler review of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Jason G is also going to be joining me on this podcast. We did see the movie together, but I had to catch an earlier bus, and we couldn't record the podcast as we normally do as we come right out of the theater with our fresh reaction. So you'll be hearing from him in a little bit. I'm recording this review 31 days later. Jason G and I saw Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 on May 4th. To date, worldwide, the movie has grossed $781 million. It's a little bit above that, but it's almost actually close to even 782. It's so far made more money than Thor Love and Thunder has, which is 761 million worldwide. Now comparing it to the three previous big releases from Marvel, Ant-Man and Quantumania overall has made 476 million worldwide. Black Panther Wakanda Forever made 859 million worldwide, and Doctor Strange, which is one of this bunch of movies that's reached close to the $1 billion mark, which is like about 956 million. But with mentioning all those movies, I comfortably can say, personally speaking, that I think Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is the best of that bunch. And of course, I still think this movie and all of these other movies can still make money by being licensed to other channels, other streaming services, the merchandise. But it's kind of funny right now because with Marvel movies, as of this date, where I'm recording this, which is June 2023, they're not as popular culturally, I would say, with fans in terms of the MCU proper. There is a lot of anti-Disney, anti-Marvel YouTube channels that talk about this dissenting view of the Marvel movies and some of the messaging in the movies. So I would say that Marvel is not at its peak popularity now, but then when I look at some of these box office figures, it would make you think twice, most definitely. And I, for one, as I'm not to the point where I don't want to see these Marvel movies opening day in theaters. This is still my bread and butter, what I enjoy watching. I'm there still day one for these Marvel movies for sure. Unless they get really terrible, bad reviews, then I will avoid it and probably wait for streaming. But if they get generally positive reviews, I'm there day one. But now getting into the movie and some of my thoughts on the movie, I'm trying to make my review so that I don't kind of overlap with Jason's points because I've heard what he's going to say. And I'm going to, like I said, put that into this podcast. But I'm going to try to make my points that don't repeat what he says, more or less. Some of the little notes from the movie. There was a death of a character that was expected, but it didn't happen. There were a few times where it was close to happening. This is like a very big rumor going into Guardians of the Galaxy that a character would die. But thankfully, it didn't happen. There was a moment in the movie when Peter Quill we thought was going to die. He didn't. When Rocket Raccoon was going to die, when he didn't. I even thought that Drax and Mantis, I thought that they were going to even die at one point. So thankfully, nobody passed on in this movie, any of the characters. There was also a hint, and you see this in the trailers, where Peter Quill and Nebula were possibly going to get together romantically. And I thought that would have been kind of nice. It would have been different, but that didn't happen either. As always with James Gunn in these trilogy of Guardians of the Galaxy movies, he always kind of puts in these classic rock, because this is a part of the Peter Quill character where he leaves Earth at a particular age, and he's always listening to this classic rock, thinking this must be the same music that everybody's always listening to. The way the classic rock is included in certain scenes in the movie and throughout this entire trilogy was very well done. Now, speaking about James Gunn, he is in my same generation. I'm Generation X, and in my generation, we grew up with Star Wars. We grew up with like Fraggle Rock, Jim Henson, The Muppets, a lot of very practical creature design, or in the sense of like a man in a rubber suit kind of design. And you see this influence in this entire trilogy, from the makeup to the characters to the makeup of alien species that we come across, but all come across very human. There's a scene in this movie where the Guardians go to this planet where it's very domesticated, I guess you would say, or civilized, the same way we as humans are, but it's all like people that are animals. Like you see bat creatures, but they're like have human features, right? And it just made me think about growing up during the 80s, having magazines that went into this. Now you can find it, even though it's not as popular, like kind of the art of a movie or the making of a movie, but in a book form. And I remember magazines back in the day kind of going through this. I would even say something along those same lines, where sci-fi like Star Wars, Star Trek, and all these little smaller sci-fi movies like The Last Starfighter, the influence from those movies in the spaceship designs in this entire trilogy. And I really saw like the spaceship design, the costume designs of the Guardians. They had like this red and blue kind of team outfit, which looked really cool. The like I said, the spaceship designs I thought were super cool. I'm thinking even of the second movie, the planet designs, where Kurt Russell's character, like he was this planet, like that's in the comic is very similar, where it's like a face of someone, but on like the backside of the person, it's like somebody's head, and the face is on one side, and then the other side is a planet. Just the design of the characters, of the worlds, of the outfits, the spaceships, I really feel that's like James Gunn's influence. I'm assuming all this, if he was, which I'm assuming that he is, into like this, like the same thing that so many young folks were into during the 80s, of like in these movies, like the spaceship designs, the creature designs, and celebrating that. And that comes across to me when I watch these movies. One note about the theater that Jason and I saw it the night that we did see it. We saw it at the AMC Times Square. There's this particular Dolby theater that's on the second floor as soon as you kind of go up and they accept your tickets. And we've seen other movies in this same theater before. I remember in years past, we've seen Blade Runner 2049 in this theater. We've seen Spider-Man Far From Home in the same theater. But this particular night, it was so loud in there. I don't know, maybe it's because we were where we were sitting, or maybe it's like some issue with me, but when I left that theater, my left ear was ringing. It was so loud. I was thinking the next time we go see a movie in this particular theater to take earplugs, because so loud. It was hurting my left ear. And also the theater, once again, coming back to the whole thing about Marvel movies losing a little bit of steam, losing their popularity some. Like this theater was half full, where movies in the past, Marvel movies, would be, this was a Thursday night that we had seen it. In the past, these Marvel movies would be like packed. You know, they'd be, all the seats would be occupied, or many of the seats would be occupied, but this theater was only half full. I enjoyed this movie. I laughed, I cried, and was clapping afterwards. I'd be willing to see it again in theaters, and that's normally not something that I would even go do for most movies. But I really had a great time with this movie. This was a very complete movie for me. I would say if there's any cons that I have with the movie, any things that I wasn't crazy about, was that the villain was always yelling, and even though this actor who was the villain in this movie, he was one of the main characters in the Peacemaker show, and I do like that James Gunn uses the same people in a lot of the movies that he does, but he was just always yelling, you know. And also I just felt that Adam Warlock was a little underdeveloped. He was played by Will Poulter, who was great in Dopesick. And that was one of my favorite shows that's on Hulu. Please check that out. Maybe a couple years back, one of my favorites of the year. Dopesick was incredible. But those are really just small gripes for a movie that was tremendously fantastic. Let's go ahead and switch gears and go into Jason's review, and then I will come back to wrap up the episode.
Good evening, everyone. This is Jason G. And Paul and I just saw Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I must say, it was a fantastic movie. There was trauma. If you wanted to rank the 3 Guardians of the Galaxy movies, I would rank this as the second best. I'll say the first one is the first best. This is number 2. this volume 2 would be number 3, but who cares about the ranking? They're all good. They all fit together very nicely. This movie is so well paced, and it's very well edited. There are a couple times where I was like, hey, this is weird. We're going back to a Rocket flashback out of the blue, and then, which they did a few times, but usually they show Rocket first, and then they go into the flashback, and then, but they were like once or twice. But anyway, it could have been very choppy because there was so much going on. I mean, same with the first movie, so much going on, but it's edited so well that it's so much fun. This movie, first of all, is a Rocket origin story. It is really well done. It's actually really like scary at times. Like they really show things done to animals that could upset a lot of people. And I have had cats in my life, so I'm an animal lover, and to see what they were doing, it hits hard. So that's one thing, but the movie, I can say, for James Gunn is a cinematic genius in some ways. He not only directed this movie, but he wrote this. I think he wrote all of 3 Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and if I'm not mistaken, he may be the only director of any Marvel movie that writes his own movies. I think maybe Ryan Coogler wrote the Black Panther movies, but he might have had help with someone else. But anyway, those are excellent too. Really, really talented guy. A lot of fun. The character arcs are amazing. The guy who plays the Higher Evolutionary is phenomenal. I think he should be nominated for like Best Supporting Actor when the award season comes. I think he was fantastic. Paul told me he was also in The Peacemaker, which I haven't seen yet. Now I really want to see that because I did see James Gunn's the Suicide Squad that he made for DC. Now he's making a Superman movie for DC as well. I'm looking forward to that. This may be his last Marvel movie, but who knows? I would say this is probably the best Marvel movie since Endgame. One could argue that Spider-Man No Way Home was as good or better, but I don't know. They're different movies. They were both very good, but those are the 2 best. This was great. I really had a good time. The ending is super amazing. It comes together all so well. Great action, great comedy. Yeah, and you really root for Rocket. I mean, it is so good. It's very emotional, this movie. I think in terms of like getting choked up, I think I did it maybe a little bit more when Yondu passed away in the second one, and they honored him, and that was an amazing ending too. Volume 2, but overall, this is just a very emotional movie. It's so well done. I really liked it. The really good Marvel movies are the ones that like scare you somewhat and shock you, and this does that. Like, Infinity War, it was really scary experience when we saw that, and half the people died, and then how crazy and evil and this guy was, Thanos. In that movie, you could also say that about a few other Marvel movies, but the ones that really scare you a little bit and have good action, good dialogue, good story, good character arcs, those are the best, and this was one of them. So anyway, talking about scores, I'm going to give this a 9.2. I really enjoyed this movie. Yeah, I hope everyone gets to see it. I hope. I would say this movie is a great movie that shows people to care for others, care for animals. Don't try to change people in crazy ways. But anyway, yeah, it's a great bad guy, great actor, great actors all around. I really hope that some of these characters come back again, but it was really a good movie. Anyway, that's it. I hope everyone goes and sees it. Summer movies are about to begin, and happy movie going. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
That is it for this particular episode. And this is also the final episode, the season finale for season 5. I wanted to do seasons from January to December, and kind of end it then, but I just been a little bit lazy about it. Season 6 will be starting in the next episode. And why do seasons? Why not? Maybe I should have just numbered all the episodes and gotten into some three-figure deal, in terms of, now I'm on episode 102 or something. But no, seasons are okay with me. But as always, want to hear your feedback on any of this that we've discussed. And post your thoughts, comments, feedback on the blog at paulhasfun.com. Or if you're watching the video version of this, you could do so below. And find the rest of my content on paulhasfun.com. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. I'll catch you on the next one.